It is said that there's a group of islands isolated from the outside world, like a secret domain crafted by nature itself. Located on a stretch of sea that's particularly difficult for the average person to reach. It has strong storms and thick fog year-round. The books of Tevat do not record the location of these islands, nor the history behind them. Ships can hardly approach the islands, let alone dock. However, tales of sailors approaching the area describe the weather as dreadful. The thick fog mysteriously calls out like a hunter catching its prey. There's quite a story behind these islands, and we are about to find out. Hey guys, I'm Clementine and welcome back to my Genshin Impact lore and interesting things series. In this video, I will tell you what there is to know about the different stories regarding the Echoing Tales and the Har Islands, also known as the Golden Apple Archipelago. As I mentioned moments ago, these islands are covered with a mysterious fog that seems to trap anyone who would enter it. However, it would appear that a generation of people settled here in these islands and have been accustomed to it. With the first chapter of the Conch retrospection, Songs of a Distant Home, it tells us a story of the people who inhabited the Twinning Isle for generations. The chapter unfolded chronologically, but it had such a sad tone to it. It starts with an old woman saying that they arrived in the islands 10 years ago, and probably were among the first settlers of the Golden Apple Archipelago. She then gave her grandchild a gift, which means the heirloom was now handed down to the third generation, starting from the first conch grandma. The following voice lines indicate that this gift was now a family heirloom and was passed down. Moving to the third generation child, it turns out that she became a mother and passed down the heirloom to her own daughter, who is now the fourth generation. This is implied from the quote, "I should give the family treasure to you, just to be safe." Next, the fourth generation child became a grandmother herself and has gifted her grandchild the same heirloom, jumping to the sixth generation. The sixth generation child seemed to be speaking to her playmates about what her grandmother gave her, hinting that the area now has a group of several young children as the whole settlement grew larger. In the final conch, the sixth generation child has now become a mother as well. She can be heard speaking about the inevitable need to transfer to a higher settlement as the sea level gradually rose, swallowing most parts of the islands. The daughter then came and told her that she had no choice but to leave their prized heirloom inside the chest on the central part of Twinning Isle, the same one which we opened for 40 Primogems, a 4-star Berserker artifact, 20,000 Mora, and 4 mystic ores. To sum it up, Songs from a Distant Home tells us that there was once a group of people who stumbled upon these islands and could not escape due to the thick fog surrounding them. It is possible that these people did not come only from Mondstadt, but also from Lie and Inazuma. Now, moving on to discussing some theories about this chapter. Apart from the heirloom story, which spanned a total of 7 generations in Twinning Isle, there was a surrounding mystery regarding the first 4 conches. It's about the nursery rhyme passages at the end of every conch, where we got our code to unlock the luxurious chest. The whole nursery rhyme aims to remind each generation about their supposed hometown. Now, if we put together all the passages, it will read, 5 mountains hide the little village, 2 paths through the lonely forest, 1 river flowing down the middle, 4 winds bring the sound of joy. As for the location of the village, there is little info as to where it really is. Some speculated that the last rhyme talks about the 4 winds of Mondstadt, and it hints that this family hailed from Mondstadt. Plus, the archipelago is closer to Mondstadt and is being investigated by Mondstadt characters. The river flowing down the middle could be the one that goes past the tree at Windrise, due to it having some village ruins. As for the first rhyme, It does have some loopholes whether the mountains around Mondstadt or Springvale count to 5. A second theory about its location is that it refers to Chinse village due to it being surrounded by many mountains, as if hidden from the rest of Liyue. Also, the lonely forest could be Wuwang Hill. It is nothing short of lonely, and we can also enter the village through the forest by following 2 different paths. As for the third rhyme, we can see a flowing river just right in the middle by teleporting to the village waypoint. The Four Winds passage may be a bit confusing. Still, according to Venti's 5th character story, the Four Winds can refer to the 4 different seasons of winter, spring, summer, and autumn. So the 4th passage could mean that Chinse, being a primary and agricultural village, is abundant all year round. It's also common knowledge that younger people from the village depart to seek greener pastures in Liyue. Some of them eventually end up working aboard ships. So we can probably guess that the first conch grandma and the other original inhabitants were aboard a Liyue ship. No matter which theory is correct, it still gives us some insight into the settlers' hometowns. As we move on to the second chapter, Strangers in a Strange Boat, we find 2 echoing conches scattered among the 2 smaller islands on both sides of Twinning Isle. Aside from the conch retrospections, 2 wooden planks had words carved into them, which gives us plenty of details as to what exactly transpired. The people who boarded the ship were headed by a certain chief, Genome. They seemed to have escaped from the Inazuma shogunate after a tough battle. They stole treasures before leaving Inazuma, including the Magukenki puppet. However, they are shipwrecked upon reaching the Golden Apple Archipelago as they sailed away from the action. Chief Genome's crew is part of a more extensive fleet called the Akodumeki Pirates. They were a band of pirates from Inazuma, specifically on Serai Island. They were just recently given the ship by Captain Ako himself, but the ship got wrecked along the way to lose all the treasures they stole from Inazuma. So as they reach the islands, all that's left is the Magukenki puppet. The inhabitants at Twinning Isle gave the pirates refuge, which is evident in researcher Said's impression about the mural found on the island. So now we have 2 different sorts of people hailing from 2 other places coexisting on the same island. Adding to this, at the end of the quest from Outer Lands, a defense mechanism spawns from the shipwreck, meaning to say that it was also smuggled onto the ship along with Magukenki. These enemies were first sighted in Dragonspine, so it is pretty strange to see them at the archipelago. The fact that both Magukenki and the defense mechanism are robots is an interesting coincidence and maybe a hint towards some form of research into robotics happening in Inazuma. As for the theories regarding this chapter, there is some speculation that the ship got sliced in half by the Magukenki. The original location of the Magukenki is on the island north of Pudding Isle. We know this from the conch found on the other half of the ship. So how did it manage to transfer location to the central platform? A possible answer is that the Inazuman pirates moved it to an area where it could be watched or recovered. It is viable that the Magukenki activated on its own while on board the ship and sliced the vessel in half. Even the pirate had regrets about stealing the puppet in the conch retrospection. Amidst the sinking ship, the Magukenki may have gotten exposed to the waters. Its mechanism died, which gave the pirates a window of time to turn it off by pulling out its core. If not by the Magukenki, the Inazuma ship could have been destroyed by the flying mechanism you fought in the story quest from Outer Worlds. Now I have to add some trivia about the origin of the names of these pirates. The Japanese term Genome means snake eye or eye of the snake. There is also another meaning where it comes from the name of the dryad butterfly, Genome Cho, and a type of umbrella, Genome Gasa. As for the name Akodumeki, Ako, may be inspired after the domain or city where the 47 Ronin, Akoroshi, were based on. As for the term, it literally means red ear, where ear, as in the grain part of cereal plants like wheat. For Domeki, it is very likely to be named after Dodomeki, which means hundreds-eyed demon. Dodomeki is a female yokai with a knack for stealing money. So this is actually a fitting title for a character of Akko's line of work who is a pirate and steals treasure. Chapter 3: Unlucky Father. It talks about the misfortune of Dongdong's father, the same person who wrote the book Someone's Diary. According to his game info, he is a villager from Chinse and became a treasure hoarder who wanted to make money for his son. As we start his backstory, the first conch can be found in Nameless Island, located to the left of Twinning Isle. The two other conches can be found in the trio of islands interconnected by bridges just above Broken Isle. The man might have first landed on the Nameless Island, but was captured by Hilichurls. Then he was somehow caged and transferred to the trio islands. Finally, in the last conch, he got rescued by someone he doesn't know. As we discuss the possible answers to the identity of his mysterious savior, we must take note that the only character in-game we can picture coming to this place is Beidou. For someone who has defeated a sea monster and is as knowledgeable about the sea as Mona is about the stars, it is possible for her to at least know about this place. It is unclear if Dongdong's father got lost here while with Beidou's fleet, if he was saved by Beidou, or if he even met Beidou. With Beidou coming up in the latter half of the 1.6 update, it might be possible for Dongdong's father to have finally joined the crooks within this time frame. Plus, he could be a good NPC character like the others on the Alcor. This man has a lot of misfortunes, but now he's trying to redeem himself. So unless he's revealed to have been deceived or has had worse stuff happen to him, let us assume that this is one path his story could take. In Chapter 4, My Hero, this specific chapter needs to be told in reverse to make sense. As for the locations of the conches, one conch can be found in Pudding Isle and the other two in the central platform. Even though we found the last two conches within the central platform area later, they hinted about stuff that happened first. It starts off with a child who seems to have some fascination with the Magukenki and mistook it for a figure of a general or someone who is protecting them. This happened at a later period because it is already located in the central platform. Now, during this chapter, some parts of the central platform are being swallowed below sea level. The rising tides might have forced the family to go to a higher area, Pudding Isle. This meant that they had to leave the Magukenki there, and that explains why in the first conch from Pudding Isle, the kid sounded so sad for the general. He ran off, probably disappointed that his family didn't take the Magukenki along with them. Continuing to the 5th chapter, Grand Line, one conch can be found within the secret spot in Twinning Isle, which was the exact spot marked in the mural. The other 4 were scattered across 4 separate tiny islands miles apart, which was pretty interesting. We find out that this chapter has 2 people who keep bickering at each other. The guy is from the Akudumeki pirate crew. The girl is among the 7th or 8th generation of the first inhabitants. 4 of the conches are split in 4 far-flung directions on each side of the archipelago. This means that they probably already had navigated the entire Golden Apple Archipelago. As they continued searching for an exit from the islands, it sounded like they got more comfortable with each other as their collaborative research progressed. The Inuzuman pirate, who was constantly throwing jabs at his fellow islander lady researcher, might have actually fallen in love with her. This can be inferred from illegible letters found inside the marked spot in Twinning Isle, specifically the 2nd paragraph. The secret location in Twinning Isle could be the guy's study area, guessing from the bookshelves and study materials. These two were trying to figure out how to solve the mystery of the island's astronomical and navigational conditions. The fog density changes along with the time of day, and wind direction changes with the moon's phases. Finally, they saw a path to the exit somewhere to the north, which changed their fate. This also connects to the girl in Chapter 7, Island Bygones, who persuaded her grandpa to leave Pudding Isle. She comes back to tell her granddad that he's the last one left on the island that they want to take with them. He says he'll place his trust in them and leaves with them, having no more humans on the island. Now, speaking of Chapter 7, Island Bygones, this chapter consists of 4 different stories from 4 other locations. Therefore, we can conclude that we can arrive at more story details judging from the Echoing Conch locations. This particular story we pieced together from the Broken Isle conches introduced 2 people, an old man and a younger guy, taking shifts in monitoring the ocean tides. This makes sense since the Broken Isle is where we can find the water level puzzle that the inhabitants could have used for the same purpose. This means that over time, people have developed a more complex system of monitoring the rise and fall of ocean tides on that particular island. The Minacious Isle story chain is where we can hear 2 people exchanging words about the island's mystery like the inverted ruins. The younger voice is Dongdong's father, and he is trying to adjust to the stranded life. He was surprised to learn that the older gentleman has been in the archipelago for generations and has already accepted the fate of his own life and of the people there. At first, he tried to convince him that there is a more beautiful world outside these islands. Still, he probably stopped talking about it in the end because there was more important things to think about at that time. A conversation between a father and his son can be heard in the Twinning Isle conches. The father is trying to teach his son how to fish by relying on the rising tides, but the alarm sounded too soon, so they hurried their way up with great concern. This could imply that the rise of the waves can be very abrupt, and that it would only take a matter of seconds to submerge low-level islands. The 4th story is about a granddaughter trying to convince her grandpa about departing the Pudding Isle and traveling their way out of the archipelago in their vessel. I mentioned this moments ago where she assured her grandpa, who was still having second thoughts, that she has already found a way out of the archipelago. In conclusion, all of these things are based on the actual data we have, as limited as they are. Whatever happened to the people in the Golden Apple Archipelago, we can only hope that they found peace and happiness. Still, it would be a better ending if they all were able to leave the island and find their way home and start a new life in the continent of Teyvat. As for the trivia of these islands, it is the only place so far to have sandberry trees and star conch, which are both Lewa's specialties, dandelions, which is a Mondstadt specialty, and sea ganoderma, an Inuzumun specialty, located all in one area. Well, I hope you enjoyed my video about the Echoing Tales. More details will be explored as we head off with the second half of the 1.6 event. I found this interesting because we got to know more about some notable details of Teyvat's history. It will be more interesting as we look forward to Inazuma. As always, if you have some thoughts about the video and suggestions for future ideas, leave a comment and let us know. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've hung around till the end and think it deserves one, give the video a like. Once again, my name is Clementine, and as usual, until the next one, be safe and stay tuned.